Welcome to the Warsong AMA. I'm Richie and I'm your Officer of the Law, here to answer your questions. So to begin, you need to understand how the law at Warsong works as a whole. How does it work, you ask? That's what I'm here to tell you. Alright, so when the Warsong first started, one of the biggest requests we had from players was that they wanted a story that would evolve the world around them while their players progressed through it. They didn't want to play the same game year in, year out, forever and ever and ever, never going anywhere, never doing anything. So we created a setting and a law that would help create this living world that the players could interact with and would also develop as they did. To do that, we created 3 different types of law, and I will explain them to you now. The first law we created was the overarching story. It's something we created very early on and is slowly building as Warsong progresses through the chapters. It encompasses everything from chapter 1 to chapter 2 and will continue on to chapter 3 and whatever comes next. It's basically the big mystery and the reason for the whole story, much of which has been seeded out there in games days and games nights for a very long time, in little bits, in the most subtle of ways. The second law is actually called the game mechanic law, and this, as its name suggests, was created to explain certain game mechanics that wouldn't make sense in character. An example of that kind of law would be the law surrounding death and respawn, which you all know is a game mechanic that keeps our game fun and interesting and everyone can get involved and take part. But as a character, it kind of throws you a little bit. So there is a law surrounding that, and yeah, that's a mechanic law. All our other game mechanics have a bit of lore attached to them, that being the most prominent, but yeah, the others have them as well. The third and final law we have is the subplot law. Seems pretty obvious, but that's actually a twofold thing. Subplot law is used on games day / weekends and is basically a full contained story that you can experience over the event, has beginning, middle and end, and we have those at games days and sometimes chronicle nights. And the other part of that is controlled by the warband leader, and that's the warband law, which basically explains that warband's whole reason for being in the game and their motivations to keep them moving forward through the chapters. So now, with those 3 different types of law in mind, I'll attempt to answer your questions to the best of my ability. Keeping in mind that I won't just be giving away the overarching storyline, but I might be able to point you in a place where you might find that information if you ask the right questions. One last thing before we jump into the questions. Our official website, www.warsonglarp.com, down the bottom here, hopefully, has a whole lot of lore available. Seriously, a lot of stuff is there. I would highly recommend checking it all out, keeping up to date with the blog that's on that website. That is a very good resource to use if you're more interested in lore. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into these questions. That is an overarching lore question. I can't just explain away everything. There's a mystery out there to be solved. Luckily for you, schools has just kicked off, so there's a whole bunch of NPCs out there you can talk to. Captain Freeman, he's been everywhere, man. I'd have a chat to him. Mestapen, if you think we're on some sort of flying turtle in space, give him a chat up, because basically he's a creature expert. And there's also Lissa, who's a forest spirit. She probably knows a little bit about what's going on. So have a chat to those NPCs next time you get a chance. Talk to them, see what they come back with. Who knows, yeah, you might find something out. Yes, we do have a creation story. However, that's heavily tied in with our overarching lore. Again, if you'd like to know more, talk to some NPCs, come find it out. How did humans find out about the Big Bang and the other theories on how our world existed? They didn't just instantly know. They didn't have some booming voice in the sky tell them. They had to figure it out. And it's true with LARP too. Come, talk to people, figure it out. Please figure it out. Well, firstly, there is no Elysium anymore. Elysium was one and renamed Venenium. Venenium is owned by the Alliance, and it did rise in the 5-year gap as Neo Elysium rose around it. But if you followed the story of the 5-year gap, it did stop and it plateaued out. So it is slightly higher than the rest of the land around it, but it is no longer rising. Yeah, it's fully stabilized. Alright, so firstly, I think you've got some of the subplot lore confused there. I would highly recommend talking to your warband leader or any warband leader you're a part of, or any warband leader you're interested in to find out what happened to them in the 5-year gap, because Iron Claw did do some capturing of people, but they didn't just capture everyone and own Venenium. It's split up into 3, each district owned by a different warband. To answer the second part of the question, there aren't any towns or mining colonies on Elysium. There should be some small towns in the Warband's barriers where they are safe, protected by the Elysian barriers. If you want to know more about them, check out the Facebook group. There's a document on how they work. But yeah, there are no things out there simply because the Clay Warriors would come and destroy them within a day or two of them being erected. There are some outposts where the Grey have tried to set up shop, and the Clay Warriors have come and demolished them. So every now and then we find like deserted small settlement or a destroyed small settlement. We don't find many mining sites. What we do find is surface deposits that we're able to mine before the Clay Warriors show up and wreck our picnic. Hope that answers your question. We've had a variety of NPCs in the past, lots of different things, and we will continue to have those moving forward. The reason the Clay Warriors have such an emphasis at the moment is because we're at the start of Chapter 2, and the Clay Warriors have a big part to play in the lore of what is going on with Neo Elysium. So that's why there's a big focus on them. But yeah, for sure, we've had plenty of sirens in the past, we've had forest spirits in the past. It'll happen again, definitely. Again, head to the Warsong website, and you go into our drop-down section. There'll be a warband leaders section, or not a warband leader, sorry, a warband section. In that section, you'll find a whole bit on the Grey that pretty much explains what they are canonically. Hope that helps. Same way as everyone else did. That's not really a lore question, but it's important to remember this is a team game. It was developed to be such. You can play as an individual in the Grey, but it's not optimal. If you're not joining a warband, you are severely limiting your options, but you can do it. You've got to remember we run events where there are over 100 people. We can't cater to 100 individual storylines running at once. We can, however, cater to 10 to 20 warbands running together. So if you want to do more, I'd highly recommend joining a warband, being part of a team, and you will have a lot more fun. No, not unless they're invited by the other warband, because that's their controlled territory. So you would need to do whatever ritual that warband requires for you to pass through the barriers and have their permission to do so. Yeah. Not that have been found yet. Neo Elysium's a big place, and we sure as hell haven't explored all of it yet, so hang in there. the kobolds. I would highly recommend going and talking to one of them. We've had an issue in the past where people think they're very murder hobo-y, but they tend to think that after approaching a small group of them with 4 warbands fully armed with their weapons ready to go, so you approach someone that way, you're probably going to get an aggressive response. There are some kobolds who will just kill you straight up because that is their personal belief, but there are a lot of kobolds out there, trust me, a lot, who you can get monologuing with just the littlest bit of bait. They're happy to talk to you about where they come from, what they do. Your other option is talk to people who have encountered them. Plenty of people out there have encountered the kobolds. I'm sure they've all learnt something. Ask around, see who knows what, see what information you get. Might cost you, but it's worth the roleplay. Pretty much, yeah. Look, we don't want to do a whole bunch of time shifts. We did the 5-year gap from chapter 1 to chapter 2. That served a purpose. But for most things, time is 1:1 ratio because otherwise it gets really complicated trying to figure where everyone's at personally as well as together. So one thing that's a bit weird is like Thursday nights we play, 2 to 3 games. And that seems a bit weird that you don't fight all week and then all of a sudden everyone rocks up, has 3 battles, and then leaves for a week. So I like to imagine that those 3 battles happened in that week period at different points, but genuinely everyone was around for them. It's one of those things where you kind of just have to suspend your disbelief a little bit to get the game to work on a regular schedule. But genuinely speaking, when a week passes in our time, a week's basically passed in Warsong time. Hannigan's Bluff. All right, so Hannigan's Bluff was created around the time when there was a lot of tension over the geopolitical game and the battle for Elysium. So it was designed to remove players from Elysium and chuck them somewhere else and just have a game stay where they could do something different, something fun, something out there. We don't want to say that it didn't happen, but it was written that there was a long journey to get to Hannigan's Bluff, now Mount Krieger. So it's not so much of a stretch of the imagination to say there was a voyage in that, a sea voyage, that we all got on a ship, we all went, hell, Captain Freeman could have taken us. That NPC wasn't created yet. You've just got to kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit. But yeah, basically it happened somewhere else. I wouldn't say a small island off the coast. I'd probably say it took a while to get there, maybe a couple of weeks, and it's on another continent somewhere. But it definitely did happen. It's canonical, but it's just not in Elysium, Venenium, or Neo-Elysium. That's interesting, because warbands control the law of their homeland. They control what happens back there. So the admin don't really deal with anything outside of Neo-Elysium. So whatever you as a warband believe is being told back home is basically what happened, and what's getting told out there. And like Chinese whispers, things change over time. Different things happen, different things get back, different people will have different perspectives on things. So it's really up to your warband leaders and your warband about what is getting out back home. And if you're deciding to create a new warband, you have control of what you've heard, what you may have heard happened to Elysium, Venenium, Neo-Elysium, and you can use that to spur your own story moving forward. Alright, so the earthquake was localized to Venenium, Neo-Elysium, and the surrounding oceans. That's it. Didn't go any further than that. And would it have been heard of around the world? Depends. Depends on traders, sailors, merchants, what people saw, who left, who went where. I know for a fact the Dark Horde left Venenium, but when Neo-Elysium rose, they heard about it, they came back. So it's more of what your warband heard back home is up to the warband leader. And starting new warbands, if they want to just come in on that jumping on point, they can totally do that too. Possibly. Possibly. We can sail to Neo Elysium. Other continents that we have yet to hear from can sail to Neo Elysium, but the world itself hasn't been completely discovered. If you want to know more about that, there's an NPC called Captain Freeman who's been a lot of places for a very good reason. So yeah, have a chat to him, see what he knows, what's out there, and if you've got any questions, he'd probably be the one to hit up about that. The admin have a name for the world, but that doesn't mean it's universally agreed upon. I mean, you guys as the players can either choose to agree on something or not. Doesn't make it true, doesn't make it not true. It's just another thing to fight over if you really want to. Or you could all come up with a name and name it yourselves if you like, just like the way Earth was named. Yeah. So I wouldn't say there is a universally agreed name on that the admin are enforcing, but if you guys start calling it something, we're not going to stop you. Both. Some places will know of it, others will not have heard of it. It's just one of those things. It gets to some places, it doesn't get to other places. It's not a well kept secret, it's not a weak kept secret. It just is. The world develops as it develops. If you want to start a new warband and you've just heard of it, then you control your warband's subplot. They can just hear about it and they can head on in, or they could have known about it for a long time and didn't come for whatever reason. That's up to you. But yeah, it should be known and in some places unheard of. Absolutely. You can totally be at war with another warband's home continent. They could be warring well before they ever came to Elysium, Venenium, or Neo Elysium. All you need is the permission from that warband who controls their own law, obviously. And you need to make sure that you're in constant communication with them to make sure that you're not power or metagaming anything to get an edge on them to make the game unfair or unfun for them in any way. But as long as you guys are working collaboratively, not a problem at all, man. Go for gold. All I can say here, man, is it's like real life. Your character should believe what they want to believe. They may get evidence to the contrary or to support it. They can either then change their belief or choose to ignore the evidence. It's completely up to them how real life would work. I mean, do we have a god structure, one god filtered down through others, or do we have a whole bunch of people believing that their god is the real god? So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that one. You tell me, man. Why haven't one of your warbands or another warband shown up with 400 players and just stomped the field on a Thursday night? I think that's more of a game mechanics explaining lore than a lore explaining game mechanics type question. We want to play, we want to have fun, we want to create conflict in the best way possible. We don't just want a warband coming in and stomping everybody. That said, there's nothing to stop that from happening. So you're in your warband leader is in control of your warband's lore. Ask them, why hasn't your continent come over and stomped on Neo Elysium and just owned the place? They should have a pretty good reason for it. And if they don't have a good reason for it, man, rock up with 1,000 people. Stomp. See what happens. Um, while a few frozen land masses have been found, nothing resembling magnetic poles has been found. So, yeah, the night sky has stars in it. You can chart by them, but they don't move. Yeah, so good luck with that one. Yeah. If only there was like an NPC that like dealt with creatures and stuff that you could talk to a bit. Oh, Mr. Pen, of course, yeah. Go talk to Mr. Pen, man. He'll tell you all about the awesome creatures that he's found in Neo Elysium. And I'm laughing because Jobson plays Mr. Pen, so you know what you're in for. Because it's a pit full of poison. It hasn't rained poison from the sky. Yet. Yes. Yes, you have seen grave sites. And you found bodies buried there on Venenium and Neolesium, respectively. Why are you digging up bodies, Kurt? As your warband leader, I'm concerned. Tell your friend that anything is possible, but let me know in advance because I want to bring popcorn and watch. Again, give it a whirl, man. I got plenty of popcorn. I'd love to see some of that stuff. Yeah. In our lore on our website, in the blog, it talks about fauna, and fauna means wildlife. Haven't they? Are you sure? Have you talked to all of them? I mean, maybe they just didn't tell you about the other warbands. Are you okay, man? Is your character having an existential crisis? Man, I don't know what all the characters get up to in their spare time on Neolesium, so I guess maybe. Yeah, you're definitely on Neolesium. Uh, I'm unaware of bodies disappearing, so. There are a lot of uses. If you go to our rules in the group section on the Facebook page, there's a whole list of perks and what the crystals can do for you and your warband. Go check it out. Um, Look, anvils are a game mechanic, and the lore behind that is that you are fixing people's armor, the thing that gives them HP. So you are returning that HP to them. The 3 health points you have to start off with, that's just something we have to cover to make it fair across the board. But that's how anvils help. They're not magically healing you from a chest infection or something. They are replacing bits of your armor that were damaged in the battle. Yeah, man. Whatever you like. Not a whole lot will happen except for the stuff outlined in the perk list in our rules, but yeah, go for gold. Okay, so this is a pretty big misconception we face. People have made a lot of assumptions and then tried to extrapolate facts off assumptions, and it's just kind of not working for them. And if you paid attention, you could have found the lore hidden out there many times. In fact, I know a player totally figured it all out. I'm not going to say who that player was, but they pretty much know exactly what's going on with this. So hold on for a sec while we go through this. You basically fall on the battlefield, coup de grace or otherwise, and then you find yourself back at your base, full of health, ready to go, out on the battlefield, can't remember what happened. One of the roleplay explanations to this is pretty easy to get your head around. So, we've already come to the conclusion that the number of people on field fighting these battles isn't the number of people that Warband has brought to Neolesium. There are other people, farmers, house dads and house mums and stuff like that, other people. So it's fair to assume there'd probably be some field medics that aren't actually healing people, but more running out, grabbing the bodies, dragging them back to base, healing them with proper magic that's not, you know, a quick fix on the battlefield, and then chucking them back out there. That's a complete roleplay reason you could invest in to explain how the respawn works on games nights. There is also a reason on games days why you would possibly show up at a graveyard. That is very, very lore heavy, and there is reasons behind that. If you would like to find out more, I'm sure there's an NPC out there you can talk to discover more about that. It's definitely a mystery though, go check it out. And to answer the other part of the question, Warsong very much runs on the fact that if you don't have the prop, you can't do the thing. If you don't have a healing prop, you can't heal people. If you don't have a sword, you can't hit people. Very much you need a prop, do the thing. If you don't have the prop, can't do the thing. So has anyone actually shown you your severed head? Because for one, would love to see it. For two, I would argue that that's not yours because yours is firmly attached to your head. There's a whole lot of roleplay you can have there. If someone's pretending to cut your head off, they didn't do a very good job of it because, you know, they walk away with their hand like this. They don't have a head in their hand. And if someone's willing to go to the extra effort to roleplay that, then roleplay it. If you see that on field, freak the hell out, man. You could be like, that looks like me. What the hell is going on here? Is magic afoot? Oh, I don't know. So yeah, I hope that sort of answers your questions. Yeah, that basically covers that misconception, I think. There's lots of options you've got there to go on, and lots more you could go find out. So yeah, please do that. Alright, man, respawn is a game mechanic, not a lore one. It's not something you should be talking about on field. Respawn, it's a game mechanic. It's not something people talk about in day-to-day. And coming back from the dead, no one would call it respawn either. So hearing that word on field always makes me kind of cringe a little bit. But I understand why it is used. There are way better roleplay reasons around that. But the world is the same over. The happenstances that happen here on Neo Elysium happen a bit different to the rest of the world, but the death rebirth aspect of it, totally the same world over. So there's probably NPCs you could go talk to about that sort of stuff to find out more. You'd have to talk to them about that. I mean, it's a war. A consequence of war is people die, and you can't outrun death. Not even in our world, not indefinitely. Himself, huh? Sexist much? I'm kidding. Look, again, believe what you want to believe. Talk to some NPCs. You can believe what they say is true. You can believe what they say is false. It's like gods, man. How do you know until you face it yourself? Have you faced it yourself? Then you don't know. So yeah, believe what you want to believe. Go out there, talk to NPCs, see what they think, and then pick one of their beliefs or not. Pick your own. Freeform roleplay, man. Go for it. You can try, but let me know in advance, yeah? I've still got a ton of popcorn I could munch on while I watch that bit of fun. Callback jokes are the best, right? Look, I would talk to the player base. Perhaps it's already happened once before. Ask around, man. You'd be amazed at what people out there know. Solid maybe. Oh, please, man. Give it a try. I've still got popcorn. I want to see. About a week worth of traveling from Neo Elysium, you'll start to come across the other continents in different directions you head. 42. Alright, so Warsong runs on a living history. Things happened, and that's what happened. We don't want to go rewriting it. If one warband remembers it happening in the past, and another warband remembers it happening it differently, that creates conflict, that creates tension, that builds the game. We already have some warbands trying to rewrite their history, and that's good. That helps create like a cloud of what happens. People say, "You guys did this," and they say, "No, we didn't. This happened," and they go, "Oh, but." I heard this, and they're like, "Oh, where'd you hear that from?" And then they go, "That person over there," and they go over to that person, and that person says, "No, I was there. I remember what happened," and a fight breaks out. That kind of tension, that kind of conflict, is what drives Warsong. So if something happened, that's what happened. If people remember it differently, then that's how it gets remembered. We're not going to sort of go back and enforce a rewritten canon law saying, "Oh no, at this event, this now happened," even though you were all there and it all happened differently. We're just saying this happened. It's just the way it is. It's just what happens. So basically, the first time you show up to a Warsong event, that's when you joined in the festivities. The first time a warband shows up to a Warsong event, that's the first time that warband presents. That's the easiest way to keep it going. That's the way to keep it natural and fluid. And yeah, that's how we play the Warsong LARP Brisbane. We did have a games day set in a frozen tundra, and man, was it hot. It wasn't exactly summer, but it was a pretty humid day, and that while I understand that how the setting helps, it does kind of break the immersion a little bit when you are just sweating through your kit and it's supposed to be snowing. So we do very much try to keep seasons in line with what's happening in the real world. That way, if it's cold, it's cold. If it's warm, it's warm. Some things that are a little bit out of our control are the Thursday nights. They might be set in a desert, and all of a sudden it's pissing down rain. I know there are rains in the deserts, but if you look at our forecasts for Thursday nights and how much it rains on a Thursday night every goddamn time, you'll notice that it happens a lot. And we do try to run desert scenarios, we do try to run mountain scenarios, and we do try to have the immersion there to back it up, but sometimes the weather is just unpredictable and against us. So we try to ask that you suspend your disbelief and help us out a little bit there, but as a majority, we do try to keep seasons the same. At this point, it's unknown. Most warbands arrive here because they heard a story that pointed them in the right direction, and they headed out, and it was a place past another place, and to the left of this place, or to the right of this place, depending on if this reverses or not. But yeah, the wider world, we don't have a map on it as of yet, but it is something we are working on to fully cement the Warsong law of the world, so hang tight for that one. Pretty sure there's a head of school NPC that deals directly in Flora. Maybe you want to ask them? Or Jobson, if you want a really inane, stupid answer. Love you, Jobson. There is a scale on the official Neolesium map. Take it, go to town, work it out. I'm pretty sure some players have already done the legwork for you. If you ask them nicely, they may tell you. Whatever your character believes, they believe. We don't have they haven't developed the technology yet to either confirm or deny how many moons are in the sky, or if they are a trick of the light, or if they're actually there, or if they're just a star that's really close, which physics-wise is impossible, but our world has magic, so, you know, who knows? Just basically go with whatever you believe. Uh, there is no indication that this land was ever underwater. It's fresh, it's pristine, it's good to go. Um, but there are landmarks that have yet to be found. Basically, games day ammunition for the admin to use, so get excited for that kind of stuff. So we come to the end of our first Warsong Law AMA. I have been your Officer of the Law, Richie. I hope I have answered your questions. If you have more questions, please comment them below and I can see what I can do. If this explodes into a ton more questions, maybe we can do another AMA, maybe even do that live vid where you ask questions and I can answer them as they happen. But we'll have to see how people feel about this format before we try another one. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks all for watching, and thanks all for being amazing war singers and being part of this absolutely amazing hobby that we call LARP. I love each and every one of you. I mean, go home. I love you. Bye.